Hello YouTube. This is my first attempt. Therefore I'm going to call it my prototype. I have a family member, or actually two family members, that have a rear patio with the deck, hot tub, grill, tables, and everything set up, and they entertain a lot of Ohio State football games. Move the TV out to the rear deck and enjoy the games. One thing that there was missing was an Ohio State light fixture. Well, had no success in finding one. So I came up with the idea of making one myself for them. And this is what I came up with. This is my prototype. As you can see, there's the Ohio State emblem. That is printed on glass or painted onto the back side of a piece of glass. And then I made this wood frame around it. And I was going to paint it green. And then I painted all these little white stripes in here. And I want to try to number them. You know, 0, 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 yard line. And both ways. To kind of represent or make it look like a football field. Main reason behind this is on the underside of their ceiling or the roof over their patio, they have a similar paint job or paint scheme. And again, this is my prototype. What I had it set up to do is you can release the latch, drop it down, and we get the camera moved around here. And in here would be access to the piece of glass. And it may take two hands to get it out without dropping it. But you get it started and it slides out. Now let's take a look at the glass. The glass here, it's actually a cutting board that I found on eBay. It's got little feet on it, and it was designed to be a cutting board. It was used, but because of the reason I'm using it, that didn't bother me to have a used cutting board. But it's nice, looks like almost stained glass, not quite, but it does have a rough edge to help diffuse light. And then the frame, I've got a rail here that it slides into, top and bottom, to hold it upright. So roll the top of it up, you can relatch it, and it holds it shut. Okay, there's a few problems I had with this though. This was one issue. Second issue was the wood that I used as the trim. The front trim here to hold it together. I went cheap because it was a prototype, and I used a yardstick and cut it up and used it to make the frame. Problem with that is the print that was already on the yardstick is very hard to cover up, very hard to eliminate. And you can see the paint ran because I was trying to put like 8 coats of paint on it, and you can still see the lettering underneath. So I decided on the production piece, or the final piece, not to use a yardstick. So that was my first issue. Second issue was this latch. It is not really necessary, because what I'm going to do is right here on the bottom, and I will experiment later and find out if I need one in the middle or two, one off to each side. I found a little surface mount light socket at Lowe's, and you screw your bulb into it, wire it to the 110, and it's going to light up, shine through the glass, and be your light. Well, I'm going with an LED, a dimmable LED, that way you can control the brightness of the light behind it. Issue there, or because of that, Those LED lights are good for years, if not, a decade maybe. So, using this latch, which is kind of cheap and it was hard to get that to stay and get it lined up right. So I'm going to eliminate the hinge on the bottom. And what I'm going to do is on this end piece, I'm just going to shoot one screw into the top, one screw into the bottom. So all you got to do is pull the screws out, take the side off, and you can get access to the glass to change that bulb once every, I'm estimating, 4 to 5 years. Another issue was I don't have a back on it yet. I was going to cut out a piece of plywood to that shape and glue it to the back side of it. That way it'll be easier to mount onto the wall. The next issue I came into with, I was practicing with some of the CFL lights. LEDs might be a little brighter, but because this is painted, it doesn't let a whole lot of light through it. And my thought was thinking that there's not going to be enough light coming through this to be able to see to walk around the patio at night. Now, family members already stated that they don't want a whole lot of light. They don't want it affecting night vision, and lower amounts of lights may attract less insects. So what I'm going to do is cut out the top, make a strip around the top, get a piece of plexiglass, bond to the top of it, and that way when the light comes on here, it shines through the glass and shoots up from the top, bouncing it off the ceiling and reflecting the light onto the patio. Now, instead of using a solid piece on my new design, I'm going to build it just using 2 strips, front and back, which will leave that gap down the middle. Uses less wood. Sorry about that. So instead of using a solid piece here and trying to cut out a hole and make it look good, what I'm going to do is just use 2 strips across the top here, and it'll leave a 2.5 inch gap. And then just cover that in plexiglass. I found some JB Weld epoxy clear that I will bond it to the wood, tape it off, and then paint it. And these lines. My original idea was to paint it white and then cut the painter's tape to cover up the stripes and then paint it green over the white. Problem with that is it is difficult to cut painter's tape into perfect little stripes. So what I did here was paint the green first, tape off to make the stripes, and then paint it white, and you get your stripes. I decided when it comes to the green back paint, I'm going to use a brush and regular latex paint, outdoor paint, and then tape it off after it dries for 4 or 5 hours. And then spray paint works just fine for the stripes. And then after that dries 2 to 3 hours, then I'm going to put a clear coat on it to help protect it and make it last longer and help protect it from the elements. Okay, that's enough with that design. Another issue I had was with the thickness of the glass. It's not a 1/4 inch. It's a little thicker than 1/8. It was hard to get it snug, and I didn't want to tighten the wood up or put the wood in so tight that it's glass on wood contact. Pulling in and out may scratch it and more likely to break it, and better or more chance of moisture getting in to the electric and the lights behind it. So my next idea was, let's use this tubing. This hollow plastic tubing. There's a 1/4 inch internal, I think 3/8 diameter on the outside, And what I'm going to do is stretch it out on a jig and cut it right down the side to open it up, and then just stick it around the edges of the glass with a little epoxy to hold it in place, and just wrap it all the way around. I want it solid on this end, and bring the ends of it together over here and epoxy them together. That way when you slide it in, you've got something that wide that goes in, and it's sliding on the plastic, not the glass itself, and it will help seal it a little better and protect the glass. So of course you got the cutting board or the glass, the trim to go around the glass, and then I'm using, it's a 1/2 inch thick, 3.5 inches wide. This is going to be the bottom and the 2 sides. And then across the top, I'm going to use the 3/4 inch across the top and the front here. And that's actually going to be on the top of it. You'll see when I start putting it together, but that's going to be on the top front edge. So the glass will actually be sitting in here directly below it. So it's going to be sitting on that wood or directly above it or below it. And then use the furring strips like this, which is a 1/4 inch. And once you get the glass in place, apply the adequate pressure and glue a node in place to give it as a little guide to help hold the glass in and to guide it in. I'll probably use the 1/2 inch to go across the top. So the 1/2 inch across the top, the 3/4 will go on the ends. That way I got something to screw the end plates into. And then the 1/4 inch as the guides to hold it. And then on the front, on the front lip, instead of using the yardstick, I'm going to use this here. This is 1/4 inch thick, 2 inches wide, which is actually 1.5 inches. I don't understand why they call it 2 inches if it's only 1.5 inches, but someone created that idea. And that's going to be what's going to be bordering it instead of the paint strips. It's much smoother, easier to work with, I hope, and you don't have to worry about the print, the measurement prints on it. And then for the back side, got this 1/2 inch thick, fairly decent, smooth on one side, kind of rough on the back side, 2 by 2 foot piece of plywood, and use that for the back side. So once I get it put together, I'll just lay the frame on top of that, mark with the pencil, and cut it out. And that's going to be the frame. It is right now probably about 1 o'clock in the morning, Saturday morning, on the 9th. Yeah, August 9th. Almost 1 o'clock in the morning. And I've been awake since 1 p.m. Thursday, the 7th. So I'm going to go take a nap. I'm going to go get some sleep. And we'll get this, start putting this thing together. I'd like to get up about 9 in the morning and start putting this thing together. And I'll bring the camera along and try to keep you updated on it. And thanks for watching. Well, my first step for this project is this tubing. I need to slice the tubing down the side to wrap it around the glass. I'm trying to think of the best way to do that. So what I was going to do is stretch it out along here. That way I could use the wood as a guide point and try to cut it as straight as possible. But the tubing is bent. It doesn't say straight. So my idea to that was I'm going to soak it in some hot water. See if I can't make it more pliable. That way we can stretch it out straight. First I'm just trying hot tap water. If that doesn't work, then I'll heat it up on the stove a little bit. But let's see if that idea works. And there it is, soaking in some hot tap water. Once you get all the air out of it and fill it full of water, it sits in there alright. I'm going to give it about 5-10 minutes. Well, maybe 3 minutes. And see if it helps make it any more pliable. Well, the simple hot tap water wasn't warm enough. It did make a difference, but not big enough of a difference to help cut it. So I'm going to let it heat up here on the stove. Probably about 5 minutes. And see how warm it gets and see how that works. And yeah, heating it up and sticking it between these two here like a jig. I think that will help. So let's see how hard this is to cut. Well, I got it split all the way down the side. It may not be perfectly straight, but it did split. Heating it up in the water on the stove for about 5 minutes after the water got hot. It wasn't boiling, I didn't want to shrink it. But as you can see, it split all the way down. And if it's not perfectly straight, then I guess I can put it on in sections instead of going all the way around. And I apologize for that, but my camcorder has got a defect from the factory in it. And they said that they fixed it, but starting a month after they said they fixed it, it did it all over again. It automatically zooms. They said the zoom switch, they replaced it, it still does it. So if they replaced it with another defective unit. But anyways, this is the knife I used to cut it with. My handy little $10 or $15 little Gerber keychain knife. But we got this split. Next I'm going to wrap it around the glass and see how that works. Now, I tried putting it on a one continuous loop. But as you can see, the corners aren't working out so well. And the cut isn't exactly straight, so it's a little difficult. So what I'm going to do is just put it on in 4 pieces for each of the 4 sides. And that should eliminate that issue. Okay, as you can see, it's on. All 4 sides are covered in the clear plastic tubing. It's not super straight, the edges are a little rough, but I'll trim those up later when I get an X-Acto knife, something a little sharper, and actually trim them up. And then I'm going to get some epoxy or some type of glue to make sure it stays on. But this is the first, that was the end of the first step, is to get the plastic on the board. And then next, what I have to do is get measurements of the board with the plastic on it. Then I can start cutting the boards, the wood boards or pieces to go around it. But here's part of it. And right now I gotta go hop in the shower and get ready because I'm gonna go meet a friend of mine and go have lunch and go watch a movie. So we got this put together, or we got step 1 done. And like I said, all I gotta do is trim up the sides or the corners so the plastic strips aren't hitting each other. And then when I'm out today, I'll swing by Lowe's and see what kind of glue or epoxy I can get to bond it together. But that should work out pretty nice. Just a quick update. I found some crazy glue. It's one of the very few glues I found that had rubber, plastic, and glass listed on it. And it's the color change with the brush applicator. It goes on purple and dries clear. That way you can see precisely where you have it. And what I did was I went ahead and glued the tubing on. And right now I've got the painter's tape. It's kind of holding it on. Just to keep some pressure on it. And that's going to be the border for the glass. And next couple of days I'll start making the frame.